Hello and welcome to another Office Hours Capsule. That's right, Capsule. This is a little segment of my Office Hours live stream where I talk about specific parts of Star Citizen news, usually maybe some of my thoughts, often an update, and this specific one is going to be for the November-December 2022 monthly report for Star Citizen. Now, I also will do one for Squadron 42, but that happens separately because, as you can see probably by the length of this video, these monthly reports are pretty beefy, especially this one, because it's covering 2 months. And that, it just takes too long. So, and my voice will die if I try to do that. So if you do enjoy these, do let me know in the comments below if you enjoy these monthly report reads. This is me going through the entirety of the monthly report. I will read verbatim everything they say. Sometimes I screw up every now and then, and I will interject my own thoughts and kind of try to piece together what some of these previous monthly reports kind of tie into this one. So if I say something like, oh, yeah, they finished this, they've been working on it for this month, that's what I mean. But as always, if you're enjoying this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more information. We've got chat here live with us. Chat's going to tell you it's all pre-recorded because they're trolls. But we have chat here live with us. And yeah, join us for this live Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for these monthly reports, as well as other topics and discussions and AMAs and such. So without any further ado, let's get started on the Star Citizen monthly report for November-December 2022. All right, so as typical, CIG will do the last 2 months of the year as one big monthly report for January, mostly because November is a pretty busy month for them. Both November and December are a pretty busy month for them, so they don't really have a lot of time. Plus, people go on vacation and such. So this is a pretty big one. Starting off with AI features. AI features entered the year supporting investigating and fixing bugs for Alpha 3.18. Short and sweet. AI tech. During the last months of 2022, the AI tech team progressed with features required for both the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42. So this is, I've already read the Squadron 42 one as well, so I know that this is actually copied in the Squadron 42 monthly report as well. Verbatim. The team continued to iterate on more complex navigation links to extend the capabilities of NPCs and where they're able to move, including implementing adapters for airlocks and elevators. No NPCs will get to fall through elevators like the rest of us. Now NPCs will know Now NPCs will know that in order to traverse an airlock, they'll need to interact with multiple consoles to adjust the pressure and open the door. For elevators, navigation links were created to connect multiple floors. A navigation link was also created to request a reconnection with the navigation mesh triangles each time an elevator stops at a floor to allow NPCs to transition in and out. Based on navigation link connections, an NPC will now know how to request an elevator to go to a specific floor. New event notifications were also added, sent by the elevator when it arrives at the floor, so that the actor will know to get on or off. This is new. They've been focusing mostly on combat AI in terms of the tech stuff. This is one of the first pushes towards non-combat functions for this same technology, which was started about this time last year. They kind of threw away the old code and rewritten entirely. This is this new technology that we saw parts of at CitizenCon last year. At the end of the year, base functionality for NPCs driving ground vehicles was completed. NPCs can now move to a vehicle and get into the driver's seat, find a path suitable for the size of the vehicle, and drive along it. This work involved the creation of a new subsumption task, a new movement request type, and updating the movement planner to know how to process the request. The team also added new functionality to the navigation systems that marks entities to be ignored during navigation mesh generation. NPC perception was another major topic worked on towards the end of the year. The team implemented a new adapter for action areas to specify lightness/darkness, which will influence NPCs' visual perception. A new extender to propagate engine sounds as stimuli was also created, which will make NPCs aware of vehicles in their proximity. This is the first step towards behaviors that react to ground vehicles and spaceships. While working on perception improvements, the devs fixed AI visual perception through glass. Now NPCs will be able to detect targets behind glass and also understand that, in order to shoot at them, they need to move to the other side. For locomotion, improvements continued on the sharp turn assets and how they're triggered for alien characters or at walking speeds. Related to this, work began on following tech, which will be used in connection with the AI buddy behavior. For this, the team improved soft stops, collision avoidance with players, and speed handling based on the leader's change in speed. So for those of you who don't know, the AI buddy system is effectively you can tell an AI follow me and they will follow you. It's groundwork for escort missions, though I'm assuming it's also for Squadron 42, so you can do things like, hey, squad, follow me to this objective. So, or they're supposed to follow you because of a mission. For the Apollo subsumption tool, which I think we've been mentioned a couple times before, but I don't know exactly what the Apollo subsumption tool is. Again, though, CIG, great naming conventions. New functionality was added to create and modify the subsumption master graph. A lot of feedback from designers was implemented, including the addition of an interface to create roles and sub-roles, find reference functionality, improved interaction with functions and the multi-graph tab, and improvements to grid snapping. I believe this is the tool that lets them set how AI is supposed to work. So, all right, animation. The end of 2022 saw facial animation supporting various trailers and other needs. They also shot motion capture for some background character animations that will be used in the PU. Have we seen any trailers recently that require facial animations? I don't think we have. So this must be stuff for further down the line. Also, more motion capture, so it looks like we're going to get some more background stuff, which is nice. One of the things they seem to be experimenting with is AIs talking with each other, NPCs having conversations. Right now, it's just the background noise rather than actual AIs talking with one another to kind of give you some ambiance, but I think that's what they're moving towards at least. Art characters. At the end of 2022, character art finished tasks for the Frontier workwear outfits and Frontier undersuits. They also fixed various bugs related to clipping. Character concept art polished concept handoffs for the Frontier outfits and continued with concept exploration on Fauna and the Duster faction. So Duster faction is something we haven't heard before. Now there is a Duster gang that exists, the Dusters, who we last saw in Stanton. So we may be seeing the Dusters be more fleshed out in Star Citizen, which would be kind of cool. And of course, Fauna, mentioned before, we know that the stone bug is one of those ones, so. All right. Art ships. In the US, the ship team made finishing touches on the Drake Corsair. Once complete, they moved onto the white box stages of 2 new vehicles. For one, they brainstormed several options for entering and exiting. White box began on a new production vehicle 2. Now, this is a little complicated. They say White Box began on a new production vehicle 2. Now, White Box production began on a new vehicle, or is this White Box began on a new production vehicle, meaning a new vehicle that is designed for production? Because we have heard leaks in the past of the Argo MCV, or the mobile construction vehicle, which had heavy references to production and factory. So, all right. They began work on the Crusader Spirit, which is progressing through White Box phase. So the Crusader Spirit is now in White Box. The biggest challenge has been ensuring that the escape raft on the VIP variant The escape raft on the VIP variant is fully functional at this early stage, so we can avoid extra work in the future. Ship team. Escape raft is something I don't believe was in the original drafts. It may have been, but... So, there we go. Spirit is currently in white box production. White box is the very beginning of the production phase, but considering the speed of the team, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up at the end of this year. So, we'll see. The bulk of white box work was also completed for an unannounced vehicle. The team's developed the development began on an all-new small ship as well. So we have 2 vehicles, 1 vehicle and 1 small ship, and then 2 new vehicles, one which may have to do with production vehicle, and one they brainstormed several options. This could be anywhere between 2 and 3, and then 2 vehicles, one's a small ship for the UK team. So my guess is 2, so 4 unannounced vehicles which are currently being worked on in white box phase. I'll also skip this. The UK team completed their pass on the salvage feature, ensuring all major visual and gameplay issues were resolved for ship exteriors. So that's pretty big for, remember, this was November, December of last year. So. Community. Community team started in November with a cargo refactor AMA, which included details on the new soft death mechanics. They then supported the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, IAE 2952, including publishing the Best in Show prizes, an in-depth IAE Traveler's Guide, the free fly schedule, updates to the new player guide, and a dedicated IAE 2952 FAQ. They also launched a Drake-themed screenshot contest where players faced a unique challenge each day of the expo. Following their reveals at IAE, the team curated and published QA posts for the Drake Cutter and the Anvil CO8R Pisces and the RSI Galaxy. In the approach to the holidays, community released the Luminalia calendar, the Luminalia 2952 referral bonus. They also supported Luminalia screenshot contest, Luminalia holiday card contest, and holiday mayhem at Jumptown. In support of some of the Alpha 318's lesser publicized features, the community published 3 patch watch posts detailing balance keys, continued lawlessness, and the latest iteration of Jumptown. The team also spent time working on a few new web-based programs and further improvements coming to the guide system, community hub, and Spectrum. Very cool. Again, I'm going to hijack a little bit of this and say, CIG, please put YouTube streams on the hub or put the Twitch streams further down. Because right now it seems like you're just pushing Twitch streams, which I get, but it means you're not giving any credence, really. I mean, not much credence to the YouTube content creators who make a lot of content. Now I'm talking about myself, I'm talking about the vast majority of content is First Star Citizen goes mostly unrecognized by CIG. So, all right. Woo! This is the engine portion. For those of you who have not experienced the engine portion before, I will make this statement. I am not a follower of the machine god. I do not know the Omniscia's wishes. I am not a Starfleet engineer. I cannot turn rocks into replicators. I am not a Covenant engineer. I cannot disassemble and reassemble an electric vehicle by rote memory. I am but a humble teacher of history who has barely any idea of what these words are in this engine section. I will still read it. I will do my best to interpret it. But if you are yourself an engineer or have knowledge of the canticles of the machine spirit, please do, down below in the comments, say what the heck does this even mean? If it's all good or if it's just, generic stuff. With that being said, let's go through. Engine. November and December were busy months for the physics team. Aside from plenty of bug fixes and supporting Alpha 318, they worked on various optimizations. For example, the cost of performing part OBB versus grid cell overlap checks was amortized? amortized, I don't even know what that word is, by performing them in one call for a grid node instead of cell by cell. Also, sub-stepping for attached and AI-controlled NPCs on the server was disabled to bring back actor entity step performance. Several internal data structures were compacted and reordered for a smaller memory footprint and better member alignment. On the renderer, the team enabled the Gen 12 pipeline and scene rendering by default. This will be featured in Alpha 3.18, which is a major milestone on the road towards completing Gen 12 transition and providing a Vulkan backend following October's work on particles. Further substantial progress was made. Gen 12 refraction and half-resolution rendering support for GPU particles was added. The particle stage and GPU handler refactored, and the particle shader background compilation was enabled. Furthermore, particles split for each hierarchy level are now updated in a way that ensures UAV resources stay consistent across each pass and don't change. Moreover, debug visualization code for various systems was ported to Gen 12, and PSO caching for projects and particles was improved. Regarding atmosphere and volumetric clouds, an initial draft of a new temporal renderer mode was submitted and will continue to be worked on in the coming months to provide better rendering performance of ray-marched volumetric clouds and atmosphere. Furthermore, various options for refined cloud snapping was brainstormed with tech art and will hopefully find their way to release soon. So a lot of that is, first one, I guess it has to do with how the AI is rendered on servers. The second one has to do with Gen 12, and this third paragraph has to do with volumetric clouds, kind of improvements to volumetric clouds. On the core engine, the team completed work on V2 of the pack data file support for the engine, game, and tool side. On that note, the system now also provides an efficient lock mechanism for legacy pack files, as well as much faster access to files inside pack files embedded in the main P4K data file, both of which significantly improve the loading of object containers, which is important because that's what you need for server meshing. Additionally, the mapping of threads on the Intel CPUs with P/E cores was rewritten. Critical threads such as main, render, and network threads are ensured to always run on performance cores to avoid the otherwise poor performance on affected CPUs. These changes are currently being verified on the PTU. Also, support for page sizes larger than 4 kilobytes, aka huge pages, was added to the engine, at the moment on Linux only. It's currently used for stack text and data segments, as well as physics allocations. Using huge pages reduces the pressure on the TLB cache, the part of the CPU transitioning virtual to physical addresses, which should help with performance. With Clang, just moving the text segments to the huge pass gave 7% speed up. Furthermore, the latest version of Bink 2 was integrated, and a few audio-related bugs fixed in video playback, manifesting themselves as random clicks during playback. Another area that progressed well was remote shader compile server used to build shader caches, etc. Due to increased usage of the server by development teams and build processes, proper support for fallback agents as well as server throttling was implemented to deal with times of extreme load, and to allow for more distributed compilation. At that point, it also made sense to rewrite various parts of the server code to allow for more robustness, better logging, and increased performance. Lastly, shape unification was completed and entity area support was added. A copy-paste bug in the entity aggregate manager that caused a lot of unnecessary memory access was fixed, and viz area loading was refactored to support batch conversion from previous versions of serialized viz area data. The remainder of the time was spent supporting 3.18. That last paragraph, I have no clue what they were talking about. I recognize some of those words, shader piles, cache, viz area. That just seems more stuff I don't even know. And that last one, the pack file. I don't know what a pack file is, but whew. Features: Arena Commander. The majority of the team's end-year focus was on making final improvements to Alpha 3.18. Work continued on Classic Race Refactor, including taking the Snake Pit, Eutropy, Euripide? Is that what it is? Euripide? Icebreaker, and Miner's Lament courses to playtestable states. This allowed features to collect feedback from several other teams. A refactor of the race manager and checkpoint system then began, with the aim to create a more robust, future-proof system that can be used by the PU teams to create races around the verse. Design also began developing additional variants of holographic checkpoints and directional arrows for each track, which will vary in style to best suit the setting. Finally, for racing, work was completed on Old Vanderval, Rickard Memorial Raceway, and Defford Link racetracks. Very cool. I don't know how to say it's not Euripide. Yes, that's wrong. It was I can't remember. I'm not going to even try it. Improvements were made on the new front end, including a new window for game mode selection, an updated style, and the restoration of single player using a rewritten lobby system that also supports multiplayer. This allows for other teams to use the new front end Arena Commander feature stream for greater feedback. Investigation then began on adding turrets to Jericho Station and Dying Star maps to either assist or hinder the players in Vanduul and Pirate Swarm game modes. Work was also done to speed up and ease the process of taking locations from the persistent universe and have them featured as maps in Arena Commander, which is currently being used for several upcoming racetracks. The team supported the Soft Death feature, a refactor of the Game Rules Round module began, which allows Star Marine's Last Stand mode to have multiple rounds. This refactor enabled it in all in-game modes should the design team choose. Duel mode will be the first to utilize this and will allow players to begin a new round with a restocked ship after each kill. Work was also completed on the rework system used to ban or allow vehicles and weapons in each game mode. This system provides greater customization for the developers, such as setting up a new mode that will only allow a certain vehicle. This is used in Alpha 3.18 during Filtered Duel mode, Squadron Battle, and Battle Royale to only allow small and medium combat ships. The first pass on the new death cameras, which point to the player that killed you while moving and zooming dynamically, was submitted and enabled for all game modes too. Finally, work was submitted for an unannounced update to Classic Arena Commander mode, which will be further detailed in coming months. I always say, don't sleep on the Arena Commander team. They have a lot of work they do to kind of update Arena Commander and then push it beyond what it originally was. So that's pretty cool. And a lot of this stuff is also going to come back in the PU with things like the race mode. So it's pretty cool. Features, characters, and weapons. Throughout November, the team added support for tractor beams snapping boxes onto cargo grids. This included a holographic preview to assist with moving loot onto a ship, which we've seen in 3.18. They also revisited the feature behind dragging an unconscious body onto a medical bed. This is being made more generic so that bodies can be placed on other appropriately sized objects. As part of this, several improvements are being made to the flow itself to make it more robust and forgiving. The team also supported the upcoming patch release with improvements to player respawn and the reconnection flow. Additional time was spent ensuring all new inventory UI features are working as expected too. The team then investigated issue logs for a bug that caused the inventory UI to load indefinitely, with multiple fixes being added to the build. On the technical animation side, additional features were added to the inverse kinematics IK system to allow for more of the mocap performance to come through. This will help when adjusting limbs via IK while doing actions such as pressing buttons or manipulating weapon attachments. These kinds of dynamic IK-driven adjustments are required to avoid enforcing very strict metrics on environments, weapons, and gadgets. Effectively, the IK system allows you to procedurally place your limbs and such, So this means that if you're reloading your weapon, it won't always be the same. It'll depend on what state you're in terms of moving. So that sort of thing. All right. Towards the end of the year, gameplay features worked on hull scraping for Alpha 3.18, including reacting to feedback threads on Spectrum and adjusting gameplay to match the goals of the first iteration of Salvage. Additionally, filler station functionality was expanded to allow players to create several usable items for hull scraping. That's the thing you can be making the tool for the Vulture in the Vulture. The team also continued with resource management, including life support and artificial gravity. This included a redesign of the previous engineering UI, last seen at CitizenCon, to give a clearer, more modern design to support the vast amount of functionalities that will be expected. Very cool. Additionally, groundwork began for vehicle tractor beams. The next steps will be creating the tractor beam UI and expanding the feature to support its proper functionalities. The mining update continued with changes made to the Argo Mole and Misk Prospector to create bigger differences between the individual and multiplayer aspects. The first rebalancing pass was done for all mining heads, sub-items, and gadgets to support the updated approach to resource distribution. This involves new variances for minables to ensure they're distributed in a more controlled fashion throughout Stanton and support more future crafting releases. Mention of crafting twice, or at least production. This is the first mention, specific crafting. There's also tractor beams, which we've known for a while that they've been working on the SRV, the Argo SRV, which is the tow truck. So that may be an indication of that. As well as life support, artificial gravity, and engineering UI. So all of these things that we've seen in the past, more continued work on all that stuff, which is good. Features mission. Mission features spent the end of the year enacting improvements and bug fixes to missions for Alpha 3.18, including issues seen on YouTube, Twitch, Reddit, and Spectrum, alongside issue council reports. Using feedback from Evocati and Wave 1 PTU, they also implemented analytics events into time trial missions and began analyzing the results to balance missions' target times. This data is also being used to determine the final unlock order for when mission progression is implemented. This analytics reviewing and balancing will continue until it's live. For Security Post Korea, the team addressed an issue with a secret item not working correctly. They also changed the way the datapad on the security chief spawned and adjusted the turrets as they were respawning too quickly. The time pass timer length was also increased. The team are currently looking into an issue with missions not generating for the Crusader mercenary scope, and are continuing to investigate other known issues we have raised. Mercenary scope. Oh, for the mercenary kind of things in Crusader. Okay. All right. So a lot of stuff that they're working on for 3.18. Stuff they've done for 3.18 and balancing for it. Vehicle features. Features vehicles. The vehicle feature team worked towards porting the transit system to Alpha 3.18's new persistent tech system. Most of the core work was completed before the holidays, though some improvements continue to be implemented. Most recently, they allowed trains to slow down and wait for transit ahead of them on the track. This should fix issues with trains overlapping. The team also implemented new setup tools for vehicles, which allow the designers to see how automated thruster algorithms use each thruster on a ship. This is used to see how certain thrusters are being used to move in a specific direction and make necessary changes to get the ships fly how they want. Ships to fly how they want. Graphics and VFX programming and Planet Tech. The VFX programming team focused on finishing damage map work for hull scraping. This mostly involved bug fixing and performance improvements alongside reworking the debug options for damage maps and documenting the various amendments made for hull scraping project. Improvements were also made to visuals, networking, and serialization, and damage maps in various edge cases found during the PTU testing. Planet Tech team focused on polishing river tech and improving resource streaming performance with a new and more aggressive threading model that guarantees a stall-free experience. Additionally, maintenance was done to stabilize the Rastar tool. More recently, work began to work on Asteroid SDF to introduce support for new primitives. The team also progressed with hardware-assisted terrain instancing to improve the CPU submission time footprint. A new local space for terrain vertices representation was introduced, which will improve floating point precisions and accelerate their other internal operations. Finally, the team began looking at off-screen techniques to retrieve a localized water simulation model for water object interactions. Lighting. Throughout November and December, the lighting team completed day and night lighting passes for time trial racetracks. They also continued to improve all lighting aspects of Colonial Outposts. This involves a lot of interior and exterior work to ensure that they fit the environment and create the intended cold or cozy feeling within the buildings. After small changes were made to the Jumptown Dynamic event, a lighting pass was done on a few areas to bring them back up to current standards and ensure that the new additions fit the existing theme. Now, this is very interesting because this looks like asteroid like bases, though I'm sure this is for the time trials stuff that they've done. So, in-game branding, Montreal. The in-game branding team finished the year by completing several mandates. This included rebranding Security Post Korea into a Crusader Security Outpost, and resigning Area 18's navigational signage in support of the new player experience. Alongside the environment, narrative, and marketing teams, in-game branding developed and implemented the visual identity for last year's Drake-themed IAE event. As well as working directly on in-game locations and events, the team continued to develop a catalog with guidelines on each in-game brand. The goal of this upcoming internal tool is to make it easier for everyone, from production to marketing, to access information about Star Citizen's in-fiction companies and improve consistency across the project. I'd love to see access to it myself, but, I don't work for CIG. They ended the year working on visual identity for this year's Invictus launch week and continued the rework of Lorville. So they're already planning the Invictus launch week stuff, and they are continuing to work on Lorville. Locations EU. Throughout November and December, EU Locations 1 continued working on the rundown Pyro space station. This is most likely Ruin Station. With more designers now on the team, they made a great progress on the layout of each room and are currently exploring interesting gameplay options across the location. Those of you who don't know, Pyro with Ruin Station is supposed to be this large station that has multiple areas, and they're all free fire. There is no green zone inside of them. There's only one small location that they had green zone. That's probably going to change a little bit, but the idea being that the station is huge and is constantly under conflict of other gangs trying to take it over from Xenothreat, who currently control Ruin Station. So we'll see how they implement that in game. EU Locations 2 worked alongside the US-based PU team to add new cargo elevators into existing hangars, which will be used during the updated cargo gameplay. So they're already starting to add cargo hangars into the game. Pre-production of the local law offices location began, which will be essential for several upcoming game loops, namely bounty hunting. They also worked on IAE and the new player experience, the latter of which involved improving existing landing zones for new visitors. EU Sandbox 2 wrapped up the year with further exploration and experimentation for the underground facilities. They also finished the Sand Caves visual target, worked to set the benchmark for rock caves in the PU, and began looking into improving and adding to Microtech's forest. Some of this we've already seen in 3.18, but in general, all of this stuff is, remember, November and December. So this was all the end of last year, is what they were able to accomplish. Narrative. Towards the end of the year, Narrative Team assisted with the new Security Post Korea and Pleasure Rehabilitation mission content. They then coordinated with design on the new time trial race missions, along with mission text. Narrative introduced Wildstar Racing into Star Citizen lore to create an organization responsible for arranging the races. Their backstory is that they began as a group of racing enthusiasts who would share vids of themselves racing on their favorite local tracks. Since then, they have grown into a sanctioned racing organization specializing in rally tracks and are widely recognized as an affordable proving ground for amateur racers to work towards completing in higher profile leagues. Narrative Team. So we've got at least one new amateur league racing for people, indicating that they want to build up racing as a profession where you kind of work your way through gaining reputation with various leagues and then being able to jump off to other leagues, effectively going to the big leagues if you're a good enough racer. That'd be interesting. Love to see the Star Citizens version of bronze, silver, and gold kind of brackets that you see in most competitive gaming scenes, but for racing. For future patches, Narrative began planning new mining and salvage missions, which will help expand the career choices available through Contract Manager. Work also continued on investigation missions, with several new mysteries for players to solve being developed. Additionally, the team discussed sandbox mission content, where players will encounter missions in the universe without accepting specific contract beforehand. Now, a lot of that is discussed, planned, but this is one of the reasons why they are cutting back on lore content on the website, is because they're doing this kind of thing, which I think is valuable. My only hope is that any of this reaches into the verse this year. It's hard to tell because this is all just discussion, though it is discussion, again, November, December of last year. The team also planned a reorganization of how in-game text is sorted. The internal tool developed to house all the game text strings is used by many different departments, and it's become clear that a new folder structure would help clarify where certain strings should be placed. Now that planning is complete, the hope is to roll out the reorganization in the upcoming year. Time was also spent on updating some of the detailed planetary conditions, such as temperature and atmospheric content, for upcoming solar systems to more closely align with the intended gameplay and solar positioning. Very interesting for Narrative. So, and mentioning solar systems, multiple solar systems, it's obvious that CIG is pointing towards Nyx at some point soon. The end of the year also brought a variety of lore, including a portfolio about the history of IAE, a new clean shot with predictions about the expo, a Loremaker's community questions, the Hazy Days short story, a word from our sponsors post featuring some Luminalia adverts, and a selection of Galactopedia posts for November and December. Finally, Narrative team also announced that 2023 will bring changes to the website's lore release schedule. Interactables. The Interactables team continued their work on Pyro, creating a more advanced and unique assets, including stalls that can be found in the rundown station. I know they mean like market stalls, but my brain went to toilet stalls. I'm like, really, CIG? We're really focusing on that? They mean market stalls. Prototyping continued on deployables. These assets take a long time to figure out and overcome unforeseen challenges that are presented by other teams to ensure that they do not hinder gameplay. Interactables team. For those of you who don't know, deployables are deployable cover, mines, possibly turrets or sensors, those sorts of deployables, which is something that they've wanted to do since Star Marine was first announced. So it'll be interesting to see where they get to that point. Which also proves a little bit that I was pretty sure that Interactables, like that deployables were being worked on like around last year, because they started the initial work on lore for it to craft it out. So we'll get into that point, which is nice. In December, fixes were made to the current in-game coffee machines. Soon, players will be able to take select cups to these machines and have infinite cups of coffee. I know people are like that. Still no pizza, though, Interactables team, huh? Still no pizza. Progress was also made on the new template for an asset that will be integral to bounty hunting, which is running alongside Environmental Arts' bounty hunting office. Maybe some sort of tracker? Finally, the team, or like a cuffs or some sort of stun gun. Who knows? Finally, the team started pre-production on lootable content, including improving the current loot pool. So we're going to get more lootable content and some better loot pooling, which is nice. This looks like hoses. I don't know what this is. All right. Tech art animation. At the end of 2022, Tech Art completed Dirt Wear Pass for all cockpit glass to ensure the pilot's vision isn't obscured. Similar paths for turret glass is planned for a future update. Graphics team delivered mesh tagging tech that will be used in Alpha 3.18 and developed and beyond to fix various lighting issues on ship turrets, ramps, and doors. This enables the devs to tag a mesh that moves between zones to receive an interior-exterior or automatic transition lighting. This will help with most related problems. They also work alongside the ship artists and engineers to enable shader damage for hull scraping on all vehicles in the game. New ramp physics collision types were added to the Drake Corsair. One allows the tip of the ramp to ignore terrain, while a hidden wheel-only collision helps small vehicles and wheeled trolleys traverse gaps. In the ship pipeline, the team closed out the Drake Vulture, while the Corsair and Cutter receives updated debris, SDF volumes, landing systems, viz area/portal optimizations, new segmented turret, viz areas and turrets, and local grid and lift and ramp tech. Team also further developed the Misk Hull Seas interior walkway animation, which syncs with the exterior hull transform animation. The final walkway will be skinned asset with 10 sliding rings connected by a stretchy tubing. Tech Animation spent the year's latter months focusing on head asset processing. We've been taking some long overdue actors and starting the internal processing procedure to create their likenesses. This includes creating over 78 scans per head asset and processing them to the neutral head asset. Some of these actors were scanned over 7 years ago on the main shoot for Squadron 42, so they may look quite different these days. The team take on these complex scans and break them down into individual muscle movements and apply them to the facial rig asset, ultimately including them in the gene pool to give more variety to the heads and faces seen in game. All right, we're almost done. Online Services Montreal. The Online Services team began the majority of November and December on Alpha 3.18 stabilization, performance improvements, and bug fixing. Time was also spent with the DevOps publishing team, production tuning the new services and new graph database used by persistent entity streaming. Significant effort was also spent tracking down edge cases in the new character repair that will replace the current character reset, with an emphasis on finding possible exploits and potential failure points in the process. Live Tools Montreal. The Live Tools team focused on developing features related to persistent entity streaming, including the new login flow module implemented into the Network Operator Center. Now users can manage entitlements directly through Hex, which is a major step forward. Another tool related to persistent entity streaming is the Entity Graph tool, which is further developed and implemented. This module offers the ability to search and visualize the various entities attached to a player or in an account and associated details. These new modules provide more versatility to Hex and contribute to making it a powerful tool for investigations and issues solving. Turbulent Web Platform. The end of 2022 saw Turbulent adding to the Alexandria tool library with a new module called Grid. The Grid tool gives content creators Is it for me? No, it's not for me. Another way to present information, and was first used in the Luminalia calendar. Yeah, it's for them to make stuff for their own content. The team also progressed well with the SSV project, which provides the ability to adjust the color palette of any themes. This tremendously complex project saw the dev and design teams come together in the most creative ways. Turbulent Web Platform team. They also continued to add the manufacturing library, this time Origin JumpWorks. Turbulent's experienced team focused on reworking the initial user flow from selecting a starter package to downloading and entering the game. Decemberr saw them start development after many months of design iteration and technical decision making. So they're starting to rework the new player experience, the new player experience, the website experience, which hopefully we get to see. The community team continued to polish the community hub with a majority of the new features set to be released in early 2023, including better connection to large events and player-generated content. Still no lore options though there, Turbulent. Finally, for Turbulent, the architecture team put numerous hours into the PHP 8 upgrade. After 6 months in the making, it hit the production environment and was warmly welcomed by the wider development team. Right. Last but not least, we have VFX. Through November and December, the VFX team worked through tasks for Alpha 3.18. This included putting these finishing touches to new vehicles and lots of task pool and snag list fixes and tweaks. They also continue to support salvage effects, making adjustments after seeing some inconsistencies in backer footage of PTU Wave 1. VFX also began to plan the overwhelming but necessary restructuring of their generic effects libraries. These libraries contain the most commonly used effects, including smoke, steam, and sparks, and have been too bloated over the years. In the months ahead, the team will be reducing the number of individual effects living in the libraries while making visual improvements as they go along. So, that is the monthly report. Over 40 minutes of that. Just to kind of summarize some of this, VFX team is going to go through and rework a lot of the visuals. We see some new stuff being added for the web platform, including an update to the find out what Star Citizen is to buying and downloading the game. We have tools that were related specifically to PES for like login tools and such from Montreal, then online services, more stuff dealing with PES. We've got tech animation. They're finally catching up with a lot of the heads to kind of diversify the gene pool for various AI that will be spawned in the game, as well as other kind of updates to various ships, mostly for 3.18. Interactables, they started working, they continued to prototype the deployables. They're also working on new stuff for bounty hunting and a overhaul of the lootable content. Another cool thing. Narrative is focusing on mining and salvage missions through the contract manager, investigation missions, and non-contract missions, random side missions, effectively. As well as a bunch of other stuff for sorting out game text tools and able to detail some of the planets and such. Locations, they worked on the underground facilities, they worked on the IAE, they worked on cargo elevators, and the Pyro Ruin Station. In-game branding, worked on a bunch of the in-game branding stuff and developed a new kind of catalog for guidelines on how to do various updates. Lighting worked on Jumptown and the Colonial Outposts and the Time Trial locations. The graphics and VFX team did River Tech, some Asteroid SDF stuff, water simulation, a bunch of stuff for hull scraping, as well as to improve floating point precisions. We have vehicle features, including thruster algorithms and PES stuff. Features, they improved security point Korea, a bunch of feedback stuff from that. Gameplay worked on hull scraping, resource management, life support, artificial gravity, vehicle tractor beams, and mining, updates to the mole. So, that sort of thing. Features and characters. Improved respawn, allowed generalized the picking up character, or picking up from medical beds. Improved 3.18 stuff. Features, Arena Commander did a lot of things. Huge kind of overhaul of Arena Commander stuff. The engine, a lot of stuff dealing with PES, Immunity, a bunch of things we've been seeing. 4 new in-production white box ships from US and UK ship teams, including, on top of that, the Crusader Spirit, which is being currently in white box, and the emphasis on the E1 with its VIP escape raft. And then we had character work on the Duster faction, as well as fauna work and frontier workwear and undersuits. Facial animations, did some more mocap stuff. AI tech team allows for NPCs to drive vehicles on the ground, perception to be affected by engines and other noises, improves sharp turns, and allowed NPCs to use airlocks and elevators. And of course, AI features did investigating bugs. So a lot of information. This is a lot of stuff that came out in this monthly report. Some good stuff. A lot of stuff is just supported 3.18, obviously, but there's some interesting things that are coming down the pipeline. Now, I do want to hear your thoughts on all of this down below. And as always, I do want to hear did you find this helpful? Do you enjoy this? I'm only doing this because people asked me to do it, so I'm continuing to do it. There's nothing wrong with summaries in this case, but I feel that with reading the whole thing, we don't lose a lot of the context. So this will help you fully understand what was written in the monthly report rather than just me cherry picking out what I think is important. Because it doesn't matter what I think is important. What matters is what you think is important. Because I may be missing things that are just super important. And those are what I want to hear your thoughts on in the comments down below. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.